I can't, long days. Ooh, yeah. Black men speak. Black men speak. Black men, I can't. Long days, heavy on the mind. Still laugh loud, still learn, still grind. We got questions that the world don't teach, so we pull up to the mic, let the heart just reach. Hard topics, but the truth we speak. Oh yeah. Black men speak. Turn it up. Let the truth run deep. Oh yeah. From the barbershop chair to the back row seat. You feel what we feel, then repeat. Then repeat. Black men speak. Talk faith, talk pain, talk pride, talk father, talk sons by our side. Every story that they said was weak, you gon' hear us talk on.
Well, welcome to another episode of Black Men Speak, a podcast where we amplify the voices of ordinary Black men doing extraordinary things in their communities, careers, and lives. I'm your host, Keith Dent. Welcome today, and I hope you guys won or enjoying the World Cup. I know I am. But we have a very important date coming up next week. You know, it's our 250th anniversary of our nation. So we're going to talk about democracy today. And as you know, just from our monumental events of our nation, democracy doesn't work from the sidelines. It depends on people showing up, speaking out, and believing that our voices matter. Yet, for many young people today, civic engagement feels distant, buried under political division, misinformation, and the belief that one person can't make a difference. You know, the challenge is real. Young people are having economic uncertainty, social pressures, and systems that often seem disconnected from their everyday lives. But the opportunity is just real. Every generation has the power to shape its future, and civic engagement is how that power becomes action. Whether it's voting, organizing in their communities, advocating for change, or simply just staying informed, young people can redefine what leadership and citizenship look like. The question isn't whether they have a voice, it's whether we are creating spaces where that voice can be heard. We're diving into why civic engagement matters, why so many young people feel disconnected from it, and what it will take to inspire the next generation to move from just observers to change makers. Today, we have a special guest whose work is centered on one of the most important areas in our democracy, the power of everyday people to create meaningful change. So joining us is Rashawn Davis, Executive Director of the Citizens Service. It's an organization committed to helping individuals move from being observers of their communities to becoming active participants in shaping them. Rashawn is a nonprofit leader, writer, and public speaker focused on strengthening democracy, advancing civic technology, and inspiring public leadership. He's a Newark native who made history at 21 years old as one of the youngest candidates to qualify for the city's municipal election ballot. Rashawn has led several initiatives like the Andrew Goodman Foundation and Change.org. He has served on Newark's Police Review Board and speaks regularly at universities, public agencies, and private companies. You know what's great about Rashawn? He's also part of my alma mater, Georgetown University, and New York University's Wagner School, and serves on the board of directors of the W.E.B. Du Bois Scholars Institute. So today we're just going to discuss leadership, civic engagement, community building, and what truly means to serve others. We'll also explore Rashawn's personal journey, the lessons he's learned along the way, and why empowering people to take action has become his life's mission. So, Rashawn, welcome to the show.
It's good to see you, brother Keith. Thank you for having me.
Well, how have you been, bro?
I'm good. It's obviously a busy time in the world, a busy time in the country, but I'm blessed, and I'll say I'm in a season in my life where I try to find balance. So lots of stuff happening that needs attention, but also there's a lot of joy in the world, and so I'm grateful for that too.
Yes, yes. And so the last time I saw you, you were we were at the Andrew Goodman Foundation, but now you're at the Citizen Service. So give me a brief description of your mission, and why is the mission so important right now?
Yeah, it's very simple. The Citizen Service for almost 30 years has been dedicated to giving training and resources to everyday citizens and teaching them about the power that they have to make change in their community. And the reason why I think this is really important, and the Citizen Service has been around, like I said, for 30 years and doing really good work, but particularly now, is we have a crisis of civic life in this country. Whether it's looking at the voting rates that exist in the country, or looking at generally what participation looks like, we've seen a decrease in people engaging in civic life. And what we do at the Citizen Service is say, hey, one, there are so many ways for you to get involved in civic life that don't involve you running for public office. And two, the everyday citizen, the average citizens like me, like you, Keith, you'd be surprised to realize how much power you actually have to make a difference in your community. And so we've been doing that in New Jersey for 30 years, and we're excited in this chapter of the Citizen Service to grow that model across the country, in communities across the country, to teach ordinary folks that they can have a voice and that they have power in the solution making of their communities.
Yes, yes. And so you mentioned that people feel really disconnected right now. Why do you think that is? What is really driving the disconnection right now?
I think there are a number of things. There, at a high level, there is this national conversation around what's happening in Washington, D.C., and who gets to represent us, and what the issues are, and whose voices are being heard and whose voices aren't being heard. But I think the mistake that has been made is when we think about civic life, when we think about public service, when we think about governmental change, oftentimes we think of Washington, D.C. And at the Citizen Service, we really focus on hyper-local, because what you will find is so much that affects your day-to-day life, whether it's making sure the trash is picked up, or making sure that sidewalk curb is safe for you and your dog, or making sure that you have great public schools. A lot of these are decisions that happen at the local level. And this isn't to abdicate what it means to pay attention to what's happening at the federal level or vote in federal elections, but this is to say that we need a resurgence of civic life at the state and local level. And organizations like the Citizen Service, I think, are doing a great deal of work to teach people that there's a lot of change making to be had at the local and the state level. And as everyday citizens, you have so much voice and power around things that happen at your local level.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that is a real disconnect, because we don't think we can get our curbs fixed or someone pick up the trash.
Yeah.
And at a local level. And then so with just and what are some of the other things that you do here from the local level that make, I guess, getting involved so challenging?
Yeah, so for us, and let me sort of answer that in a windy way.
Okay.
At the Citizen Service, we do a couple of different things. One is we have an online training, Power Civics. Anyone can go to our website and sign up for that training and learn about all things civics, what it means to have your power as a citizen, what it means to go to your local city council or your local mayor and propose a solution to a problem. We offer sort of best tips and best approaches to move things forward. We are, one of our taglines is no blame problem solving, because what we find is so many solutions get bogged down in finger pointing. And what we do is not about whether you're right or left. It's not about whether you're red or blue. It's about getting to the solutions that affect us. And so we provide that training at colleges, to corporations, to schools. And over 30 years, what we've found is that thousands of people who have engaged with this have gone on to do some really incredible things, from past local ordinances to sitting on local school boards, to just being lifelong citizens. The other thing, and I think specifically to your question, Keith, that's really interesting, is we have these things called civic trust. And one of our biggest civic trust is it right here in Newark. And so we have the Newark Civic Trust. It's an intergenerational trust, which means we have residents from across all wards, across ages. We have high school students. We have seniors in the community who come together at Rutgers Newark once a month and identify issues in the community, and they work backwards from it. They say, how do we get this solved? How do we get the attention of city council members or the mayor or the county? What are the solutions to this? And the reason that I think that's important, related to your other question, is that these trusts meet physically. And part of the challenge we are facing in civic life is a lack of third spaces, a lack of places where people can come together and say, hey, I just want to be in community. Of course, we're going to talk about the issues and the solutions, but I really just want to be in community. And we rarely do that, I think, on an intergenerational level. Young people kind of have their spaces and things. Right. Seniors have their spaces and things. Middle-aged folks have their spaces and things. And so it's a really powerful thing to see all of these people come together in one space and find that there's so much more that unites us than separates us. And I think for us, we are so adamant about expanding that model around the country, because we do think this is a part of the solution to what I'm calling a drought in civic life right now.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I do agree, especially with social media, and a lot of our social interactions are on the internet. We don't really talk on the phone or go to just events where it encompasses everyone. So I'm glad to hear that does exist.
Yeah, and I think, and as you know, before this, I was leading the Andrew Goodman Foundation, where we worked with young people on college campuses across the country. And one of the things I learned from being in front of college students so much over the course of a couple of years is that there is real value in social media and digital spaces. Young people are organizing in those spaces. They're forming arguments around causes. If young people are the future of this country, right? And so much of our political discourse will be happening online, will be happening in digital spaces. So that is going to happen, and I think the democracy sector in general needs to get comfortable with that, and we need to figure out how to engage with that. At the same time, though, also what I have experienced talking to young people is that they are solution-oriented, that many really do want to get involved, but don't always know how. And I think whether it's young millennials or Gen Z, there is an understanding that some solution making just requires boots on the ground, but oftentimes they just simply don't know where to go. There's a study out of the Circle Institute at Tufts where they talk about the lack of quote unquote civic homes. So these places where young people can go that are not expressly political, but places where they can form community that often lead to civic outcomes. For example, back in the day, we used to have bowling leagues where people would bowl together and they would have community. But of course, they talk about, did you see what happened down the street, or did you see what happened in the community? At least for me, in my community back in the day, folks used to go to a house and play cards together. Black folks used to gather and play cards.
That's right.
They were playing cards, but they were also talking about what was happening in their community, what the mayor was doing, what this was happening. And so what this study realized is that that's missing for the youngest adult Americans. And what we hope with these civic trusts and what we've seen in Newark is that these civic trusts can be these civic homes. They're a place for community, a place for you to meet people from across the city. We break bread. There's always dinner at the civic trust. And it's also a place where there is important dialogue happening around the biggest issues and challenges our communities face.
Now, the Civic Trust has been around for how long now?
Civic Trust has been around for 10 years.
10 years. That's a long time. But I've done some work in Newark, but haven't heard about it. So I guess my question would be, since there are young people that are involved, would you say that the word is gotten out to the community as a whole, especially the young people with like social media, or is that still something that needs to be cultivated?
Yeah, I would say so. A couple things. The first is the Newark Civic Trust is 10 years old, but for a long time it was a civic trust in the sense of it was mostly comprised of adults and older.
Oh, I see. Gotcha.
Over the past year, we have introduced something called the Wilhelmina Holder Youth Fellowship Program, which is something we talked about.
I know Wilhelmina quite well. Yes.
It's a fellowship. I know you know Wilhelmina Holder and Myra and all those great folks. But it's a fellowship program that says, how do we take young people from across the city? We put them through our training. We teach them what civic engagement looks like. We teach them solution making. And then they go on to do a lot of very interesting stuff. Many of our young people have gone on to college. Some are graduating college. And I'm proud to say 2 of our most recent graduates are transitioning into the Newark Civic Trust. So the intergenerational aspect of the Newark Civic Trust is still fairly new. It's something that we're testing.
I see.
But the Newark Civic Trust in and of itself has been around for quite a while and has been able to do some good work. But I won't mince words, Keith, in saying that there's still work to do. Newark is a growing city of more than 250,000 people. And, civic life has dipped in Newark. I find people have lots to say about the things that are happening, but often don't necessarily always have the outlets to get involved. And so we got some work to do alongside our partners to make sure that we're offering the Civic Trust and other resources, because we're not the only group doing this important work, to folks around the city.
Right. And it's interesting because normally, and especially at Georgetown University, people feel
Where Saxa.
Yeah, absolutely. When they feel they want to make changes from that lens, they usually go to law school and go that route. Yeah. What made you decide to go this lane and dedicate your career to community engagement and public service?
Yeah, I don't know if I consciously made a choice. I think sometimes life just finds you. And to be honest with you, I don't know that it's either or, right? Like, I think all of these systems need to work together. And I think the interesting thing about my career is I have had the opportunity to see democracy work from a variety of different lanes, right? I was at the ACLU where I saw lawyers go in a courtroom and fight for the fundamentals of democracy. I worked at change.org where I saw Silicon Valley tech entrepreneurs take on democracy and what that looks like in the digital space. I worked with Mayor Baraka and I was appointed to Police Review Board, and I got to see it from what it looks like from inside a government office. And I can tell you that none of these sectors on their own has the answer. All of these pieces need to be working together. And so I like to say my role has been sort of a mediator in putting these puzzle pieces together. And so we had some folks from change.org visit our Newark Civic Trust. So it's been interesting to try to put all these pieces together. Obviously, we've when we announced Newark as a civic city 6 years ago, Mayor Baraka was there. At our most recent event, Council President Larry Crump joined us. And so it's been interesting to put all these pieces together. And I think if we are going to have a robust civic life, not just in Newark, but in any city around the country, which is our ambition, then all of these things need to be working together. We need to have all of these pillars of education, community groups, government, nonprofits. All these things need to be working together.
Okay, that's great. That's great. And but go back to younger Rashawn. Was there I guess a defining moment or in your life that made you, I guess, pivot from one thing to where you are now, or was it a series of moments? I'd love to hear that.
Oof. I think it certainly wasn't one thing. It was a series of moments. I think all of my pivots, to use your word, has been a result of trying to get to the next thing, and not just in my career, but I started at the ACLU.
Like what did you major in at Georgia?
Government.
Oh, so okay.
Yeah. But I say I started at the ACLU and some other small nonprofits, and I saw them doing interesting work around democracy, defending people's rights in courtrooms, and working on the nuances of policy change. But I also saw the limitations of that. I saw that, that can be an exclusive club. It could be a club that's occupied by JDs and PhDs and who have the right qualifications. And so that made me want to think about what it looked like at a mass level in a place like change.org, which was a technology company, and being able to see, like, how do we take this democracy work and make it accessible to millions? And so I got to see from that lens, what it looks like for individuals to tap into their own sense of action and power and make change. And so, and then when I was working on the police review board in Newark, that was just me seeing, what it means to be a great public servant, what it means to be a great public leader. And so I think for me, it's always been, I'm in a space and I see sort of the benefits, but I also see the limitations, and I want to explore what that looks like in other sectors as well. And I think at this point in my career, I'm thinking a lot about putting all of those pieces together, particularly in a place like the citizen service.
So since you are not at a point where you've rolled this out yet to the masses.
Yeah.
As someone that is, I'm involved in my community or understand some of the things that are going on, not always active in my community. Yeah. Just because of, I think one of the weird things, the way things are shaped. Let's just take council meetings.
Yeah.
They have council meetings like at night, like late.
Yeah.
And so when, if you're a parent with kids, you're preparing for meals and, and getting them ready for bed, you almost can't engage.
Yeah.
And, and if you are, if you have a very robust work life, it's very hard. But so what are some of the, what would you say some of the things that just people that are local, or if maybe they have a very busy life, can do to make sure they stay involved, or at least know some of the things that are going on in their local communities?
Yeah, I mean, it always depends on the community, but at a high level, one of the things we always talk about is, first of all, staying current. I mean, knowing what's happening in your community is sort of the first step to really being actionable about it. And so we encourage folks to.
And that's kind of tough now. That one of the biggest ways we used to do that is through your the newspaper. Yeah, that's where you would get information. Now it's very hard to get just local information.
Yeah, but and I was gonna continue by saying this is what makes, and you sort of alluded to this. This is what makes these third spaces so important, because they act as information channels for the community. They also, quite frankly, just build connective tissue that's necessary to solve any challenges in a community. And so the Newark Civic Trust is one, but also it's your block association, it's community groups. And so the thing that we teach folks is you also have to get involved. And it doesn't mean that you need to go downtown to the city council chambers 7 p.m. on a Tuesday. But it does mean maybe you need to walk down the street and attend your next block association meeting. And we think from there, that's how you start to build civic life. And quite frankly, that's how a city builds a diverse civic life. It's not just about showing up to Tuesday meetings at city council chambers. It's about building a robust civic infrastructure in the city. And that means block associations. Newark does that really well with the Newark People's Assembly and having all these block associations that exist in the city. So that's been really powerful. The other thing that we talk a lot about is, and our founder, Harry Pizecki, has talked about this, is the art of persistence. That's one of the things that we teach in our trainings is when it comes to civic life, you have to have a level of persistence. And what that means is, so for someone like you, Keith, who you say, well, I got kids, I have a job, I can't be there Tuesdays at 7. The art of persistence tells you that that's not the only way to communicate with your city council or your town council members, right? You can write a letter, you can send an email. In many places, many cities, aldermen, city council, town council people, they work full time, even if they're paid part time. A lot of these full time. So you can call an aide, you can write an email, and Keith, you would be surprised how little of this people do at scale, right? I talk to city council members across the country, and one of the things I always consistently get from those folks is, they have the same 20 or 30 people who reach out.
Oh, that call, right?
And that other people don't use those channels. So the art of persistence is also saying you have so many different access channels to get involved. And then a nod to Gen Z, millennials, and I think where our public discourse is going, online and digital advocacy is also a thing. People having conversation online. Now, you got to be careful because sometimes those conversations get a little bit unwieldy, but there is something powerful about what is happening digitally and the power that has to move a community or to highlight issues. And so I'll end on this by saying what we talk about at the Trust, and we have Trust in Newark, Plainfield, Perth Amboy, Trenton, and growing. One of the things we talk about at the Trust is some of this requires creativity. Some of this really requires thinking outside the box, and it necessitates community building.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I touched upon at the top is people's lack of trust.
Yeah.
In the political process or what's going on. I mean, case in point, in the city of Newark, the mayor got called out in a very, I guess, Instagram post, and I know it went viral.
Yeah.
And so and that was the biggest, I guess the synopsis of the post was about trust.
Yeah.
So how can communities build back that trust again? What are some of the things that they need to do to feel like, the young people or just people in community feel that if they do get involved, it will be valued?
Yeah. So that's a two-part question. I think the first is public institutions have the yeoman's share of work to do to improve this. And what I mean by that is around the country, elected officials, state capitals, city halls, they have to do a lot more work to become more transparent, to become more communicative with the folks in their community. Even at the Civic Trust and through our training materials, we've trained elected officials, right? And so we have found that our materials also benefit folks in elected office, because they get to understand kind of how regular citizens are thinking about civic life. And so I think some of that work, most of that work falls on public institutions. But at an individual level, the interesting thing about trust is, again, somehow over the past decade or so, when we talk about public trust, that has meant our trust in elected officials, our trust in institutions. But I think something that misses the dialogue is like a big part of civic life is the community. And there's also a deficit of trust in one another.
Right.
And so, again, and I keep talking about this because I do think it's so powerful, and it's part of the reason that I'm here at the Citizen Service, is these civic trust or just gatherings. I know in other communities, in other cities across the country, there's a lot of chatter about public assemblies, but this idea of bringing people together to have conversation, I just think breaks down a deep wall that exists in our country. And being person to person with someone just provides something that can't be done yet digitally over Zoom. And what I have found, whether it's visiting a college campus when a student government association comes together, or being at our civic trust and seeing people come together, a lot of the stuff just starts to dissolve when we're all in the same room with one another. And so I don't think for one second it's the panacea to all our trust problems in the country. But I do think a core part of this is the trust we have in one another. And I think if we are going to figure out how to improve that, a big part of that is going to be finding these spaces for people to come together and gather.
Right. Do you have an example of that you witnessed that you would like to share?
Yeah, I mean, nothing specific, but what I will say is, and I invite you to come, I'll invite you to our next Newark Civic Trust meeting if you're interested in checking it out. But you walk into these trust meetings, and I'm not going to name anybody to save them from being in the spotlight. But you see young people, right, who kind of come in, and young people these days have a very sharp view of the world and what it should be, and who it should be for, rightfully so. And you see the seniors in our community who also have very sharp views about what our community should be and who it should be for. And sometimes those views are divergent. But I can remember at my first Newark Civic Trust meeting having this interesting dialogue around some of the conversations that were happening in Newark online about sort of development and where the city is going. And I think hearing both sides, right? Young people, lots of young people are for development, are for lots of the changes that are happening in the city. We get older folks who are a little bit more skeptical about what it means for them and maybe what it means for their wallets. And just seeing them have that dialogue and some of the sharpness that they came in dissolve is really powerful. And I think for me, that was the moment where I said, there is something interesting here. And I got to wonder, Keith, what this looks like at scale. If in communities across the country, if you have people in these trusts, these public assemblies, these citizen groups, these block associations, having hard conversations, what does that mean for public discourse? And long term, what does that mean for the type of solutions we can come up with? What does that mean for the type of folks who get elected to office? I think it's a thesis that at this point, I'm very much willing to run with. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. So let's kind of transition to leadership now, because, being an ED, and I've been in that lane before, you're definitely a unicorn, in the spaces, and you're also training young people to be leaders. So what leadership lessons have you learned that every nonprofit leader or young leader should know?
Yeah, I think I sort of stray away from, nonprofit leadership versus private sector leadership. I think leadership is leadership. I think leadership is good leadership no matter what sector you're in. And I think for me, I have been blessed in being able, again, to work under very different kinds of leaders. I've worked under corporate leaders. I've worked under elected officials. I've worked under nonprofit leaders. And so over the years, I've sort of taken things that I really liked and then kind of left things behind that I really didn't. But I'll say a couple of things. The first is I'm on the board of the W.E.B. Du Bois Scholars Institute. And when I was a student there back in the day, I'll never forget, I read a quote that said, it's by Howard Thurman, and he says, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive." And
I like that.
This question that you raised earlier about my own pivots in life, and I told you that, a lot of them weren't intentional. A lot of them were chasing this feeling of aliveness. A lot of the decisions I made were decisions that I made because I felt like this is where I wanted to go. This is the lane I wanted to build for myself. And it turns out I had found myself doing great impact work. So I say that to say to folks, don't chase leadership as much as you chase meaning. I think meaning is important, and titles to follow meaning. On a more practical level, though, I think a couple of things that I'm observing in the nonprofit space and leadership more generally is, I think in a lot of ways, there's a growing distance between leaders and staff. And the great places I've been, the great leaders I've worked under have always tried to make that gap smaller. They have had lunch with staff members, to staff members as collaborators, as team members, and not a boss telling someone what to do. Now, sometimes executive decisions need to be made. That is true. But oftentimes, 90% of the time in my experience, it's not necessarily a decision for a solely executive one. I think there's always room for conversation and dialogue, and people want to feel heard. And so I say that to say the great leaders I know try to close that gap. The other thing, quite frankly, is taking care of team members. And I think this is specifically true in the nonprofit space. We sort of label this work as do good work. But I think for me, what I find is that for people to do their best work, they need to be comfortable. And so I don't mince words that I don't think working in the nonprofit space means that you can't build a comfortable life for yourself and your family. And so one of the things I think about a lot is, how to build a great workplace. And nonprofits are limited, so it doesn't always mean cash. Sometimes it means flexibility. Sometimes it means lunches. There are ways to get creative, but the well-being of staff is something that's important to me. The other thing, and this has been a big part of my writing and also my own leadership, and people hear me talk about it a lot, is boldness. I think if you're going to lead today, you need to be bold. I don't think that you can lead in any sector these days and be passive or try to take the cautious route. I think you have to be bold in your ambition, bold in your decision-making, and I think you have to inspire boldness in your team.
Wow, that's great. Those are great words. And so would you say you are a collaborative leader?
I am. The best places I've ever been, the best leaders I've worked under, they have all been collaborative leaders. And the other thing I'll say here, and I feel like this is important to say, not because I think I'm special, but because I just want to name it.
You are special.
Best leaders I've ever worked under were women. And so I think there is, and there has been, a deficiency of leaders who are women. And I personally would like to see more of that across many spaces, nonprofit spaces, elected office, all those things.
Right.
And I really mean when I say so much of my own leadership style is an amalgamation of some of the fantastic women leaders I have worked under in my career.
Well, knowing who you are, you won't be naming those. So, I mean, I get it, because I'm sure there's probably too many to name.
Yeah. There's a lot to name, but like I said, this has been something I've been fairly vocal about, at least not in like podcasts and things like that. So those women, I'm pretty sure they know who they are because I reach out to them a lot and ask for advice.
Oh, well, that's awesome.
Yeah,
I like to hear that. So kind of a quick question, not as I say quick, but as you start to grow, I mean, and I know you're new to this organization, but what legacy do you, if we want to project forward, what legacy do you hope to leave, through your work, through citizen service and beyond?
Yeah, I think a big part of my career has been this thesis of trying to create transformative impact in the world. And a foundational element of that is bringing power, agency, and resources to people who don't have them currently, or people who don't have enough of them. And so for me, and you know this, Keith, I really truly believe in the power of young people. I think so much about American life would be better if we were able to elevate young people into positions of influence sooner. And this is not me pandering to young people, but this is to say that if you look at the history of the country, especially as we enter our 250th birthday, you look at the history of the country, the greatest social movements, the greatest pivot points in American history have been fueled by young people.
Yeah, facts.
Dr. King was 28 years old when he started the Montgomery bus boycott. Frederick Douglass was a young man when he took to the shores of Baltimore and started preaching and talking about liberation. If you look at the women's movement, if you look at the invention of the airplane in Dayton, Ohio, I mean, these were young people who were bold, courageous, who quite frankly didn't care what you thought, and they were going to go out of it. And they weren't old enough to be afraid of anything or to have preconceived notions about what was possible.
Right.
And I think at some point in the last 25, 30 years, we have been bent on this rhetoric of young people as leaders of the future. And they had to sort of start at the bottom and wait their turn. And for me, this concept of intergenerationalism is something that I want to see across business, across law, across nonprofits, across government. And I think our country would be in a better place because of it. So for me, that is one of the things that I feel strongly about. Another is getting folks resources. When I was at change.org, we started the Racial Justice Fund, and we were able to give out $7 million to Black and Brown social entrepreneurs. I don't want to mince words here either by saying that, our country is capital intensive. Every great idea needs support. The civil rights movement was funded by Ford Foundation and Harry Belafonte, who flew into Montgomery with bags of cash, right? And so capital is important. And as our wealth gap grows, as our economic resource gap grows, there has to be a concerted effort to get resources in the hands of folks who don't have enough of it. And so again, I think if we begin to do these things with serious intent, and I think lots of leaders in nonprofits and organizations are already off to a great start. But I think that is how we build transformative impact in the country, by believing in the power of young people again, by getting resources in the hands of people. And I think by having audacity to innovate. I mean, we see this in the private sector. If you look at everything that's happening with AI, there's real audacity and ambition there. You listen to some of these AI leaders, they say, this is going to happen in 5 years. And whether or not it happens, there's audacity and boldness there. And so why is that exclusive to the tech sector? I think we need that across the board. So that's kind of been the arc of my career. And if you ask me what I want my legacy to be, even though I'm far from finished, I think it really is about this idea of transformative impact in communities and some of those foundational elements.
Okay, great. Just a couple fun questions before we get to a serious one. I've been really interviewing Black authors lately and the podcast. So I'd love to know what book has influenced either your leadership or most, or what's one of the books that you've read that has really, stayed with you.
So I'll do some recent ones. Jonathan Ive just wrote, I'm a big history buff. I love this.
Okay.
Jonathan Ive just wrote an incredible biography of Dr. King. It's a page turner, but the reason why it's so significant is I think he spent something like 10 years writing it, 2010 to 2019.
Oh, okay.
And he was able to interview lots of people at very end of life. So as you know, there aren't many people around who are surrounded by Dr. King, and somehow his timing was perfect. And he is responsible for a lot of the final interviews with these people. And so folks tend to be a lot more forthcoming in the life. So
of course,
the details and the color of it all are remarkable, and it's a really wonderful book. I would say in terms of inspiration, a book that I always go back to is The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson. If you haven't read that book, if you're looking for a reason to be inspired, that is a phenomenal book.
I actually have that book, I need to read it.
Read it. It's a fantastic book.
A book that I just read that you might like, since you're a history buff. I just interviewed Stephen A. Holman, Black Messiahs. That book was a history about the World War II, and then their blacks, the military involved with the Holocaust. It was an excellent book.
Okay, yeah,
excellent book. I really enjoyed it. It's a fiction, but he draws on historical stuff. So it's really it's an awesome book.
Okay. What else you got?
So if you could have dinner with a historical figure, who would that be and why?
Dead or alive?
No, it doesn't matter.
Frederick Douglass, for sure.
Okay.
I think Frederick Douglass is the most important American, period, without a monument in Washington, D.C. I think he is fundamental to the shape and contour of the country. So definitely Frederick Douglass, first Black man to dine at the White House. They say he was the most well-traveled American in the 19th century. Man did hundreds of thousands of miles around the world speaking. Just a really phenomenal person. I would love to have dinner with him.
He's underrated.
Yeah, I would say so. More than underrated. I feel strongly about it, as you know.
Yeah.
And then I would say today, Brian Stevenson. And I was just actually at an event talking about this with someone recently. But I think Brian Stevenson deserves a Nobel Peace Prize. That's me. But I think his work, very difficult. I'm sure everybody's seen the movie, but his work on Black men, Black people, people of color who have been unjustly incarcerated, his advocacy, his words. I mean, he's opened museums in Montgomery, really compelling ones about lynching and sculptures. I think this is a person that has been very pivotal in shaping racial discourse in the 21st century. And I think he deserves a Nobel Peace Prize. And I would love to have dinner with him. So if Brian Stevenson, if you're looking at this or reading this, hit me up.
Have you ever met him?
No. Have you?
No. I mean, I would love to meet him too. I mean, his work.
Yeah.
I haven't been down to the lynching museum. I don't know if that's what they call it, but I have not been.
Well, there's a different name, but it's about.
Yeah. But I have not been, so I would love to hear that. I'd love to hear him just speak. And someone that was a friend of mine said, "Oh yeah, if you could." He was speaking, I guess, at their organization, and I think I was going to go, but it was right around the time of COVID. I think COVID had hit, and so therefore they didn't. I don't think they had him on the program, or something occurred. Yeah. But yeah, this has been fantastic. Before I get to my last question, how can people hear more about or participate, and of course, support the Citizen Service?
Yeah, so folks can always go to our website, just citizenservice.org, and see what we're all about. You can follow us on Instagram, on Facebook. You can sign up for our email list. We're all over the place. If you're interested in me as a person, you can visit my site as well, RashawnD.com. That's my first name and last initial. And kind of keep up with all the stuff that I'm doing, including here at the Citizen Service.
Great. Well, that's fantastic. So I always like to end with this question. It's always a surprise. People don't really know what's happening because we as, I'm going to say as men, but I mean, it's just we as people, we're concentrating on all that we're doing, supporting our families and things of that nature. We don't necessarily think about ourselves and our place in the world. So Rashawn, as a Black man, how are you feeling?
Thank you for that question, Keith. This moment I'm feeling a little tired. It's been a busy time, if I'm being honest. I want to answer this question honestly. But I also feel sense of security because I think I've become better over the years about building in time to my schedule to decompress and relax. So I have one Saturday every month that's just about me and the guys hanging out. I got time built in my schedule to go to the gym and take a run and decompress. I'm glad I've built those to my life. But sometimes you still feel the weight and the exhaustion. So that I would say right now I'm feeling tired. Sunday night. Yeah.
Well, I know because you got to ramp up for the week, but I really thank and appreciate you being on today. Yeah. And I look forward to at least sitting in for a little bit on the civic trust. That'll be cool.
Yeah. And Keith, I always appreciate you. For the folks watching, Keith has been not just a presence when I was a student in Georgetown, but I came back to New Jersey, and he's been a big presence across the state. Everywhere there's action happening, there's a 50-50 chance you'll see Keith there. So thank you for all you do and for your leadership and making this platform for Black men and Black voices.
Well, thank you. And give me a few minutes as we close out. Thank you. That's awesome. So those of you, wherever you live, think about how you can get involved as a citizen in your own communities, especially young people. It's vital that we take a very active role in our communities and what we want to do. If we want to see the changes that we want to see, not only for ourselves personally, but our kids and future generations. So I appreciate everything that Rashawn spoke about today. And you can follow Black Men Speak wherever you get your favorite podcast. And I hope to talk to everybody soon. Everybody have a great night. Peace.